What's up, guys? Welcome to Daily Dose of Reddit. This is your host, Zach, and today's subreddit is r/IDontWorkHereLady. Alright, this story's called Karen Gets Rudely and Loudly Shut Down. Once again, I have an adventure to tell you all about a trip to a store that has a name that rhymes with small fart. There is me, my son, I shall call son, entitled Karen, we'll call her Karen, store employee and manager. Today, a few hours ago, my son took me to Small Fart to do some shopping. Yes, I know, I'm a small fart Martian. Shopping itself was uneventful for the most part until the Karen of the story came into the picture. My son was doing his job and helping his mother, me, shop by getting things down off a shelf and placing them in a cart, being as I am permanently wheelchair bound. I was reading off a list of shopping. He was getting the items. We stopped for a moment in the frozen food section. He retrieved an item or two on my list and put them in my cart. At that moment, we stopped shopping for a moment while I took out an inhaler. I have troubles breathing at times. That's when we heard a loud snapping of fingers and a loud, rude ahem. Then the dreaded voice.
Now that you're done helping her, you can help me with my shopping.
My son turned.
I don't work here, lady. I was and am shopping with my mother. You want help? Go find an actual employee and go away. You work here?
She screeched.
Otherwise, you wouldn't be helping her shop.
Again, lady, my son said.
I do not work here. Want help? Go find an employee and stop bothering us.
She started yelling.
I'm getting you fired! Manager! Manager!
At her yelling, an employee came to see what the yelling was about and asked if she could help.
Yes!
She deliberately dragged out the s on the word.
Your employee has been extremely rude and threatened me when I asked for help.
The employee looked confused.
Ma'am, he doesn't work here. Yes, he does. You're just trying to cover for him. Now, get me your manager now.
She walked over to a post and pressed a red button on a display on it.
Manager needed in frozen food,
she said into the speaker, also on the post. Be right there, a voice said back.
Now we'll see how long you're employed here,
the Karen said as she stood there with a smug look on her face. Before long, the manager arrived. Before he could even ask what was going on, the Karen launched into a heavily embellished tale, painting herself as the victim and demanding compensation for the horrible insults she had endured and demanding both my son and the employee be fired immediately.
I remember you,
the manager suddenly said.
You're banned from Small Fart if I remember correctly,
but got interrupted by her screeching. The response of the manager was a wonder to behold and caught us all by surprise.
Shut up!
He yelled at the Karen.
This is the second time and the reason you were banned for 6 months to begin with. Harassing other customers and making up wild tales trying to get one of my employees fired.
She opened up her mouth, but the manager beat her to it.
I said shut up! Now leave your cart where it is and get the hell out of my store and don't ever set foot in it again or I will trespass you and have you jailed.
She stood there, mouth flapping.
I said get the hell out now! Or shall I call the police and have you escorted out the front door in cuffs?
The Karen took off running as if the devil himself had come in pursuit of her. It was an unbelievable but very satisfying thing to have witnessed. The manager turned to us.
I'm so sorry you had to endure that and hear me yelling, but she had that coming. This is not the first time she has harassed other shoppers. Please allow me to do something for you for your troubles.
When we left, not only had our shopping been comped 25% at his insistence, although we told him it wasn't necessary, we were each given a $50 gift card to use as we see fit on our next visit to the store. And I have a new hero to enjoy talking to whenever I go shopping there again. Edit. First, thank you everyone for the awards. They're very appreciated. A few of the older other small fart stores do have intercoms like that, and they're not customer access, although I assume a few people have tried using them. The one in particular spoken of in what I wrote needs a key code to access. I cut that part out to keep the story necessarily shorter because there is a whole lot more to it than what's in the story, but not relevant to the story, so not really needed in the story. I write under the philosophy of keep it short and simple and not cluttered up with unnecessary details. Makes what I write easier and more simple to write, as I have only one hand mobile enough to type with. Another story for another time. Well, that's a generous manager. That's the kind of managerial ship that we need more of, because, well, he's obviously no nonsense, and he takes care of those that need it taken care of. I mean, not necessarily needed taken care of, but he made sure OP and her son had a worthwhile trip. Alright, here we have another story by that same author. It's called Karen Gets Rudely and Loudly Shut Down, Story 2. Just a reminder, I type one-handed, English is my native language, and grammar is not that good, so I will likely miss quotations and punctuation, and I am on mobile, so apologies if I mess up the text. Roast me if you like. This is going to be kind of long, so buckle up, grab some popcorn, and enjoy! This takes place near a month later, a few days ago, but still fresh in my memory. Today we went shopping at a store I will call Max Foods. I had thought that the Karen that went after my son verbally was not to be seen again. But you guessed it, guess who we ran into in Max Foods a few days ago. That day, my husband, let's call him Harold instead. Both sons, 1 and 2, were with me, and a friend was there, but doesn't play a part in this. And of course, Crazy Karen, or Calvin Klein. I'm kidding. It had been a decent shopping trip. We were just getting the last of the items on the list when we heard, very loudly,
"So this is where you work at?"
Son 1 whirled at that, along with Harold and Son 2.
I don't work here either, you old cooter. Go find an employee to harass. You're not doing it today.
This time, I said something. Not you again. Let's not do this today, huh? You'll only end up embarrassing yourself again. Crazy Karen immediately launched off into a red-faced tirade tantrum about how we got her banned and how she was getting Son 1 fired for it. Sons 1 and 2 rolled their eyes at that. "Okay," they said in unison. "We get to have the fun of watching you embarrass yourself." I honestly didn't think anyone could get any angrier, but her face became purple with rage, and she started screaming a nasty, insensitive, F-word-laden rant about how we were going to pay for getting her banned, and she was going to make sure none of us work again anywhere. Then her hands came up, claws out, and looked as if she was going to attack me when Harold stepped in her way and said in a steely, cold voice, "Touch my wife and I'll introduce your face to the floor the hard way and sit on your fat ass until security or the police arrive." She stopped, but her yelling continued, calling me and us every name in the book and making threats and threatening lawsuits and anything else she could think of to try to intimidate us. But Harold never budged and refused to let her near me. Frankly, I have only heard him use that voice once, and it gives me goosebumps when he does. It's that scary sounding. All her yelling and screaming attracted a crowd. A few even had cell phones out filming the incident. An employee came scuttling into the aisle to find out what the yelling was about, but Son 2 intercepted him and I think asked him to get a manager. The employee rushed off after a moment before Crazy Karen saw him. A few more moments while she yelled more nasty names, and worse, the employee came back with a manager. Even then, she still kept ranting and raving, so much so she was becoming incoherent and stringing words together in a way no one could understand what she was yelling about. Harold had had enough by then, put on his drill sergeant voice and said,
Shut up! Let the manager speak! Now!
She stepped back, looking for all the world like she was shell-shocked. That didn't last long. Her face twisted into a stricken look and she started telling the manager how we had gotten her banned from and we were now harassing her and trying to make her leave here too.
You're forgetting something.
Harold spoke up over the crocodile tears and ranting.
These stores all have security cameras. Perhaps a look at the security feed will show the manager who was doing all the yelling and how you were going to assault my wheelchair-bound wife if I had not stopped you.
We could all see the gears in her tiny brain beginning to turn as she tried to think of a way to get out of this.
But this employee,
She points at Son 1.
insulted me and threatened me.
Then she goes back into Karen mode and demands he be fired.
Him?
The manager asks as he points at Son 1.
Yes, him.
He does not work here. None of these people are employed here.
At that, she screams and slaps the manager across his face. Then she turned to run, only to find Harold blocking her way. Sons 1 and 2 had her blocked in the other way at the same time. Harold told her.
I think we're all going to wait here until the police arrive.
She made the mistake of charging at Harold to escape. He kept the promise of his threat. As she tried to pass him, he put a hand under her armpit, spinning her around, tripped her with her ending landing face first on the concrete floor, and he sat on her, effectively putting her in place until the police arrived. To shorten this a bit, they were going to arrest Harold for a bit even though the officers know him. But that changed when they took statements and viewed the recording of the few witnesses that stuck around and viewed the security footage. Needless to say, Crazy Karen was dragged out of the store in cuffs, kicking and screaming all the way, and had apparently spit on the officers several times, as well as kicked them as they dragged her out and literally threw her in the back of the patrol car. We were asked if we wanted to press charges, and we said yes. So she's currently sitting in jail. Her family and her own husband refused to bail her out. Good choice if you ask me. I'll update you on what happened when I can, but I cannot say what at this time. Some may think this is fake and made up, but I assure you it is not. Whatever, people are welcome to think what they want. In all my life, the only one I have ever met that was this crazy was my ex. That's another story for another time. Small wart name changed to reduce bad language. Edit. We were offered to be comped for our groceries, but Harold refused, telling the manager it wasn't his fault we had to deal with a crazy idiot today. Quick edit. For those wondering, we did in fact get a restraining order to prevent further incidences with her should she get out of jail and run into us in a different store. Okay, I'm honestly thinking that woman has some mental stability issues, because who just does that and just slaps a random manager out of freaking nowhere? This story's called Woman Assumes I Was Helping a Customer, but I Was Helping My Mom. I was making some homemade sheet candy, and before I started cooking, I noticed that I was out of cooking spray. So my mom and I head out for the nearest grocery store. The employees at the store, which I worked at for a short time, wear a blue apron with the store name on the front. I was wearing a black apron covered in powdered sugar from the last batch I had made a couple of weeks prior. I had forgotten to take the apron off before heading out. While we were there, we decided to pick up a few extra things instead of just the cooking spray. My mom can't bend over due to having had a knee replacement surgery a while back, so I was helping her out by grabbing a few items off the lower shelf. My mom shuffled forwards a bit when I hear it.
Ahem.
I turned around and faced a woman with a typical Karen haircut. I couldn't really see much of her face, but her mask definitely screamed to me,
I demand attention.
with how brightly colored it was. But it was the eyes. She was glaring at me for some reason, and I couldn't figure out quite why. Oh, sorry, am I in your way? This had not been the first time I've been confronted by someone for being in the way while looking for something or waiting for my mom to move forward.
You should be helping other customers.
Uh-oh. I knew what this was the second she said that. There was no way she could recognize me as a former employee since I wasn't wearing my work wig and was only wearing a black bandana. I don't work here, ma'am. I stood up from my crouched position and straightened my apron since it had written up on my back a bit.
Yes, you do. You're wearing an apron and helping that fat bimbo get her groceries.
That woman is my mother, and I don't work here. Maybe instead of being what you called my mom, you should think before you speak. I went to turn and walk away from her when she screeched at me.
Get me your manager!
You want me to get my manager? Okay. I have a bit of a temper when people insult my family, but insulting my mom directly had majorly put me in a bad mood. What you may not know is that I'm the kind of person who becomes quite the smartass when confronted angrily. So, I went and got my manager. My mother. Here's my manager. This woman has managed me for 24 years. Why don't you tell her what your complaint is? My mom looked so confused, but the Karen just huffed and stormed out of the aisle. I thought that would be the end of it. We continued shopping when that same bright beacon of a mask came wheeling around the corner with a real employee in tow.
That's her! That's the employee that refused to help me!
Oh, Mom, you need my help in here?
Nope, I'm good. Meet you back at the car.
The Karen stomped over to me, pointing and screeching at me and the employee. She was demanding I be fired for refusing to help her and instead favoring another customer. I just stared at her, scratched my nose through my mask, and waited for her to stop her screeching before I pointed at my apron. Black, not blue. Lady, I don't work here. I was shopping with my mom. Leave me alone. The employee looked so confused, only managing out a week she doesn't work here. The second that Karen started yelling at the employee, I just booked it out of there. I feel bad for leaving the guy with that crazy lady, but I wasn't about to deal with her crap or risk completely snapping and doing something violent after she'd insulted my mother. I must have a retail face or something, or rather, retail eyes, what with all us having to wear masks and everything. But holy crap, lady! Insulting a customer and demanding a person wearing a sugar-covered apron to help you? I ain't a sugary sweet maid that bends to your every will. Giggity. Anyway, Karens be crazy. Nothing new here. But that sounds pretty cool. Y'all are doing some cool baking stuff. Baking's cool. Very nice thing to do. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode.